Very good afternoon. I believe you are familiar about the organization World Economic Forum. Okay, so yeah, I joined World Economic Forum about 5 years back. I would admit, looking at the room, that most of you would be having much better understanding of the agriculture domain. I come from a more of a technology background, so the presentation and the discussion that I will have also is going to be possibly focusing. I will be happy to learn from you in case something comes up, but then let me just kind of see what our learnings have been in the agriculture domain. The AI for AI, which is an initiative which we started about 4 years back in between the collaboration between Telangana and Ministry of Agriculture, and then subsequently we engaged about 40 plus industry partners. Many of them are coming in from either domain like the agriculture input side or technology perspective or even the finance side. And more than around 35 odd startups out of the bigger ones had joined this initiative. What we did is that we engaged with them over a period of 8 months, more than around 60 meetings through working groups. And then we realized, like, okay, how much we really need to discover and how can technology really make a huge difference. Maybe the bigger question, and great presentation from Samir earlier, what we also were trying to figure out, like, what are the 2 or 3 big bucket of problems that we should look at. And the first one, as which Samir was also addressing, is what we call under inclusivity bucket. The solving the challenges of finance and insurance for the farmers, especially for the small holding farmers, was one big challenge. And most of the data point, what Samir said, 70% of the farmers don't even have the access to the organized finance. One big other problem that we also struggled, especially around the women farmers who do not have land holdings in their names, it becomes even more challenging in that situation. So that was one big problem, that how do we solve this challenge. The second one big was looking at more of sustainability, where we see excess use of fertilizers and pesticides. Some of the crops, almost like 98% of the pesticide just goes into soil and water, really not addressing the specimen. Water is another big challenge. So how do we really bring in technology in this bucket and make the agriculture more sustainable, was the second big bucket of the challenge. And third one, which was more focusing on what we call efficiency, but then mostly around post-harvest losses across maybe more on horticulture side, but also on grain side, and then the bigger challenge on moving from the point of farm to the consumption, how much of efficiency losses, whether it's around the warehousing or logistics, and how can we really bring in technology to solve this bucket. So that was the 3 big problems that we identified we really needed to solve using technology. The how part of it, we kind of spent a lot of time around it, where we said, like, okay, fine, we do understand there's so much evolution on AI and IoT and blockchain and drones and AR and VR, where all the startups talk about. But then what is it that we can really kind of bring? How do we make it work for the farmers? The one big challenge that we see is that while we may have 1,000 plus tech startups, and then a lot of industries also host many of them, unless we take a more of a value chain approach, it'll be very difficult to see an impact across the whole chain. So it's very, like, it's good to see the use case as such to make it work in 1 or 2 crops, but then unless we take the whole approach of value chain, it is going to be difficult to measure the impact. The second big area that we really looked at is the digital public infrastructure. This is where we spend a lot of time in terms of what is it that is constraining these 1,000 plus startups to really go to those 145 million farms, and why they are limited to a few 100,000 only as of now, and how can we really unlock this. And when we went much deeper, we also realized that there are some 17 to 18 large data sets. I mean, like the data sets which really needed to put the data in, needed like land records, crop data, weather data, soil data. And how could this data be unlocked to make this available to the startups who may subsequently offer their products and services to those 145 million farms. And that became one of the biggest goal that we see. There's so much data available with the states, with the ministries as well, but unfortunately the data is the usability of the data, the accessibility of the data, has been, and then the truthful or the nature of the data is becoming a major challenge. And unless we solve it, it will be very difficult to really unleash the whole technology big bucket, that the use cases that we're talking about. Third one, which we also realize, like while we may have some of these amazing innovations and use cases that are coming up, the problem has been, like I'll give you one example that we had come across one of the startups which used to claim that using AI, we can give you the soil health report, both organic and inorganic, in 15 minutes. While it takes like a few days to go through the labs and maybe using the chemistry analysis. And they claimed that it was more than 99% accurate. Okay, we said like fine, now we had to expand it into subsequent areas. How do we really validate your solution? And it was brought into a Telangana Agriculture University setup. What we realized is that the university scientists said like they're not even 45% accurate. Now, how do you really believe like these claims coming in from some of the best of the brains coming in from IITs, but then they are looking at more from technology perspective. Possibly they're not seeing the complexities of what you guys realize on the ground from crop to crop, soil to soil. How do you really look at the importance part? Because if you're going to be baselining your advisories or any information on the basis of the soil health report which gets generated, which may not be so truthful, the advisory itself may not work. So that's where the validation of these technologies, while there are so many coming in, unless we make it like in a sandbox approach where the agriculture scientist and the technology scientists are both together, come together, and then they validate these technologies. And sir, you mentioned it right, when you're talking about research, you will realize that these 1,000 agtech startups, most of them are owned by or started by IITians coming in from technology background, but how many of them are coming in from the agriculture universities and research? And this was a big problem that we were cited, because they're looking at very differently. So that's the use of sandbox was 3 pillars. One was focusing on the validation of these solutions. Second was co-innovation. So what happens is that many of these solutions can come in a kind of a sandbox environment where agriculture scientists and technology guys can work together and evolve new innovations. And maybe most of the universities are right now not designed to be kind of working in this kind of a structure, because they believe my job is teaching, my job is not possibly coming and working with the startup to really co-innovate. But sandbox will give you a proper structure to really say that, okay, fine, this is what our job is. And third pillar was a challenge on technology, which sandbox was policy, which was we were looking at. The problem is that many of these amazing technology use cases, before we even start rolling out, the policy challenges are also big time there, and they are all mostly managed by state governments. And that's what we also started working, that unless we bring these 3 pillars together, it is very difficult to scale innovations or technology innovations in the sector. And the larger one, which also World Economic Forum stands for, is public-private partnership. It's good to say these 3 PPP words, but so difficult to execute it on the ground. It mostly doesn't work, where most of the governments today are in the role of mostly procurer. They just come out with an RFP, define, and then the price discovery to get the price discovery for any of these technology use cases is almost impossible, because every day the technology will evolve. Like how if Samir is coming out with the soil with the kind of the registry and the AI, every day he will evolve with a new data set. So it's going to be difficult to compare those the use cases to say that, okay, this is the best price that I can get for a particular use case. So evolving from a procurer approach to more of an enabler approach was a big journey for us when we started with the Telangana government, specifically in this particular scenario, where we said like, okay, where we had to write the whole playbook for district DM to even agriculture extension officers and also people who are responsible for Krishi Vigyan Kendra, that how will they really work with the startup to make it work, to expand the digital advisories to the farmers and then evolve those technology use cases. So we could evolve some of those, but it is a journey. It is very difficult to kind of say that, okay, we have solved this problem or we will be able to solve this problem, but then it needs a bit of a close deliberation. Yes, it can be worked. It may need a bit of a use case by use case discovery and a crop by crop, but then it can be worked in a public-private partnership mode. Now, the what part of it, like maybe because many of you I spoke about like those 1,000 tech startups who are working across, how we evolved and when we wanted to do a bit of a landscape analysis, that what are those technologies which are really making a difference and what is it that is lacking in really expanding some of those. So when we looked at these 100 plus people who came in from different industries and startups and government, who sat over us for 64, 65 such meetings, which happened like on a weekly basis, we went into each and every use case, trying to understand like, okay, what is the real value of this use case for the farmer? What is the role of a government in making it work, and how will industry, and both industry would mean like even the technology organizations like Amazon or Microsoft who are supporting some of these use cases will really play a role. And we divided this into 4 big buckets. One set of use cases was focusing on crop planning activities, like all the activities which happen before the seeding happens, and then looking at the challenges on the market analysis or even weather projections, soil health, and then also understanding of what how the supply of agriculture inputs will be there. Then design like what is the advisories to the farmers to really do the initial agriculture practices. The second big bucket, which forms the biggest bucket, which is like from the point of seeding to the point of harvesting, which is like smart farming, to the extension including mechanization, or even looking, which could be IoT sensors that we spoke about, using drones, both for like seeding or for fertilizers. We also even looked at the irrigation, the micro irrigation part of it, which could be even completely controlled. So there's so much innovations happening on a day-to-day basis that these use cases, when we created this whole library, it really kind of was a big discovery even for us. And third one, which is mostly around like from the point of farm gate to the fork or to the point of consumption, especially focusing on the logistics, or maybe focusing on the warehousing part of it, where the technology is becoming bigger and bigger. The traceability part of it, which happened in like how do you really map, where most of the buyers are really looking for more and more mapping for the crop from the point of origination. So all these technologies, when we started, and then one of the biggest thing which we were trying to figure out was the market connect platforms, using AI and using again a better discovery model for data. So this bucket of the use cases which we had listed out are bucketed under some 9 frameworks, because they can be grouped under different buckets. And the last one, which I talked already about, the data governance part of it, that how do you really enable the farmer data through a consent mechanism, or maybe through agriculture data exchanges that this is right now working in, say, Telangana is the first state to come up with an agriculture data exchange. And it is supported by also a policy framework which has been approved by the cabinet, gone through the whole this consultation called in agriculture data management framework. So both these documents are pretty much any one of you can look at it, and then you can see the framework. One is ADMF, or agriculture data management framework. The second is agriculture data exchange. They are the first of its kind. Not really has been done in any other states. A few other states like Karnataka, etc., have taken the next level of also understanding. Like they have this big platform called Fruits, which has 7 million farmer active database, which is now being enabled to more than 15 startups through again a e-Sehmati or a consented architecture. Even Ministry of Agriculture is right now has taken up a big initiative. If you may know about AgriStack. So this is what I was talking about, like how do you enable data sets. I'll not really go much further details, but then what we were trying to solve is that using the agriculture data exchange, how can the technologies be taken to the farmers, whether it is the financial services or whether the specific advisories around fertilizers, pesticides, irrigation or seeding, or even harvesting kind of advisories, the utilization of farm machinery, how do you Uberize the farm machinery using technology, how do you look at the electronic farm records. So all these data led innovations, but using AI and IoT on top, is becoming like the big enabling platform for us moving ahead. Now, what you may say is that all this is theory, and whether it really works or whether it can even solve some of those foundation issues. What we started this whole initiative with the support of the government, and on ground we launched an RFP in Khammam district, which is a chili growing belt. Right now, this project involves more than 52,000 farmers. It is like when we started the RFP, we got some 9 big responses, but then finally we could go ahead with only one of them, because maybe the whole role of public-private partnership to put it on the ground takes it all kind of an effort. So now it's almost 2 years. We have crossed 4 crop seasons. We worked on 4 use cases. One was focusing on how do you really give advisories to the farmers. And by the way, we did not really use any very high level depth level of technologies for most of WhatsApp based advisories, but doing a bit of a dynamic analysis before giving it to the farms, which was also validated by the agriculture university. The second big use case was focusing on the quality, which is using visual AI, but also using spectroscopy, and then using AI to kind of create a digital report for the crop and to be used by the farmers to sell it to the buyers. Third one, which was focusing on the soil health, which was again using AI, but then the technology had improved by that time. And the fourth one, which was more around market connect for these farmers in Khammam district. What we realized, and it was a big impact or understanding for us, the incremental profit, and this has come through an impact report which is also available publicly, which was a survey done for almost like 2,000 plus farmers who actually, out of which a sample of 1,200 who did all the technologies, but then 800 who did not use any technology. So it was like a pretty much an analysis of how a formal statistician will do report. 64,500 rupees incremental profit is what these farmers got through these 3 crop cycle chains, and which would mean like in Telangana, our understanding was that the average family income is around 9,500 rupees a month. A crop season will say, assuming 6 months, it's almost like double the farmer's income. Maybe a lot of assumptions, but then 64,500 rupees incremental income per acre in one crop season is not a bad, at least impact that we realized. We also realized that there was an incremental unit price which happened more because obviously the crop quality went up, but then also what happened is that they were carrying a digital report. The challenge there in the digital report was that buyers still believed in their own initial practices. So the Spices Board had to be coming in, and they had accepted that particular mode of digital report. The startup which was being used is Exnex there. But then again, incremental unit pricing and then better revenue through market platform, because they could connect to the larger number of buyers, was a big kind of a discovery even for us. Plus the use of fertilizers and pesticides, there was a reduction of almost like 9%, 7% for pesticides and 9% for fertilizers approximately. So now just look at, there are only 4 use cases. There is so much visible impact on profits to the farmers that now they are even willing to pay for services on their own. Right now, the initial project was for 50,000 farmers was mostly around Gates Foundation funded, but then there is an organization on the ground who's working on a day-to-day basis. What we believe that the project has now further been expanded to 500,000 farmers by the government. Government is now subsidizing FPOs and trying to work out a model where FPOs can buy directly from the digital technologies providers and services providers. And subsequently, they have expanded this whole project to 10 districts and more than around 7 different crop value chains. So, and now UP is looking at it. UP has already started working with us on like seeing that how can multiple crop value chains be using this kind of a framework to expand. We are working with another institution in Maharashtra, MAVIM, which is a Mahila Arthik Vikas, so it's mostly around women self-help groups. Similar use cases, but what we are realizing is that if we kind of keep looking at the role of technologies in agriculture, certainly there are big learnings that like I said, many times AI based soil health analysis doesn't work unless you kind of really get it validated from proper agriculture domain scientists. The big challenges on quality and advisories, the connectivity to the farmers on a smartphone, etc., are also big challenges. But then this is something which we are already expanding and seeing in different scenarios, different geographies. Government, while we know that they are slow, but then we also realize some of the very smart officers on the ground are very proactive. They really want to move fast and they want to see how the impact could be done. And these learnings now we are also demonstrating globally as well. I mean, Ajay was possibly there in Dubai, but then we had the delegation coming in from Riyadh, who visited many of these on the ground. We see quite a bit of global south getting represented, like we saw Vietnam is very keen, Rwanda is very keen. So they also want to see that how we are using technologies to really change the game on the ground. So that was a bit of a small presentation. I thought like it was helpful. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer.